All right, Betsy, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. Well, as everyone should remember, I think that listens to this channel, I interviewed Betsy Whitfield a few weeks ago, had a wonderful discussion talking about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, his priorities and that kind of thing. This go around, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which seems to be coming up a lot these days, UFOs. And there are several news articles over the past few months that have indicated that the governments knew about or know about UFO activity. They're still not pinpointing it to aliens or people from outer space, but they're at least willing to talk that they've had these unidentified flying objects in our skies, or as they like to say, was it UAF? Unidentified aerial phenomenon, I think is what is the new vernacular that the governments are using.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Yeah.
Oh, so anyway, so I brought Betsy on for her unique perspective on these wondrous events, what it means, tying it into the story about the reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom, his priorities and so forth in terms of SOP saving our planet. So Betsy, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to talk to all of us.
Oh, my pleasure, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we always have a wonderful discussion before I start recording, and then we
then we have to remember it.
Exactly. So anyway, so tell me a bit about what you know about the Space Brothers that Benjamin Creme talked about, maybe George Adamski talked about, to kind of get some of the people who are just hearing this for the first time up to speed.
Right. Well, there's a long history of visitations from other planets, and I always remember the film The Day the Earth Stood Still back in the 50s.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think it's still around on the internet, but we had a tremendous amount of activity back then, I think even in Washington, D.C., and government kind of, closed it all up. I think it was pretty scary, and ever since then, the media has presented it, and people have written books about how scary it is and what a threat it is to human beings on this planet. So what we're going to talk about today is the exact opposite, and we're going to talk about how beneficial our space brothers are to our life on this planet, that they are just like we are, and that they, if it has not been for their help, this planet would be uninhabitable by now. So Benjamin Creme, as we know, is a Scottish author who has done tremendous 35-year work traveling the world, talking about the reappearance of Maitreya, and drawing on his personal experiences with UFOs, and was a friend of George Adamski, who we know was one of the first, if not the first, man to document the presence of our space brothers. In his case, a visit from a craft with a Venusian. That would be a person from Venus who was seen talking to him in the desert in Southern California, and the whole thing was witnessed. And Adamski then spent a great deal of time trying to get the word out about our space brothers and their philosophy of life and their work here on Earth, so that people would not be frightened. However, as we know from other issues, that truth was pretty much stomped on and hidden by a more commercially viable campaign to make our space brothers the worst, scariest thing that could ever happen to us. However, the books that Adamski wrote are still available in how to put it, in used bookstores maybe, and are becoming very popular now because of the new Navy disclosures about UFOs and their pictures and what have you. Anyway, so Benjamin Creme, before he focused primarily on the reappearance of Maitreya and the Masters, was well aware of the Space Brothers, but eventually, people would start asking him questions, and he wrote a book called The Gathering of the Forces of Light, which pretty much details his experiences and what he knows through his master and Maitreya about these Space Brothers. So the basic part of it is the Space Brothers have a function of cleaning up the nuclear fission radiation, as they say, is spewing out of all of our power plants, our nuclear power plants, at high levels beyond the gas levels that our technology, our Geiger counters, our dosimeters can't even measure because they're old technology. They only measure a certain range. And if you think about the discovery of ultraviolet light, for example, before there were instruments to measure it, people didn't know there was ultraviolet light and probably laughed if somebody would suggest to them before they discovered it themselves, would have laughed at them for saying, "Oh, you're kidding. That's New Age stuff, probably." Anyway, the Masters have said that this pollution is the most dangerous pollution we have on Earth. It's even more dangerous than the normal pollutants that we fight every day in our cities, and yet it's undetected. And the people who own the power plants and invest in nuclear power are wanting to frame nuclear fission power as the bridge to the future before we have truly sustainable energy sources. However, that's exactly what is not only not needed, it is a very, very dangerous path to continue. Now, the Space Brothers have the technology to mop up, to negate, let's say, or dissolve or whatever, this level of radiation. And this is why you see their ships around nuclear facilities, not only military, but also around nuclear power plants and other places where nuclear, probably a waste dump or whatever. So they have been doing this work since we generated the atomic bomb. And now it's time, according to Creme, for humanity to grow up and stop polluting like this, because it's he says is the cause of many early Alzheimer's, autism, early Alzheimer's and other immune system problems. Also, he talks about this radiation has been attacking the human immune system, and that's why we are so prone to all the influenzas, all the contagious diseases, the viruses that are going around. So, having just come through COVID, it would be nice if we had decent immune systems. It would have changed history. Who knows?
Exactly.
So this is the importance of on the physical level, the importance of our Space Brothers work. They come from mostly Venus and Mars, although apparently the ships are made on Mars, but the Venusians, I guess, hire the Martians to make their ships, and then they, I guess, go pick them up and and sail off to Earth to make us aware of beauty and love and all of that sort of thing. But the Space Brothers who are in the ships are part of the hierarchy of those planets. They are not just Joe Blows in the street. So there is absolutely nothing dangerous about meeting them. They are and have been extremely reluctant to appear to Earth people because they don't want to frighten us, and they probably know how unpredictable we are anyway. So it is a critical service that they perform. Their highest cultures on their planet are way beyond, in terms of spiritual evolution, way beyond what we are dealing with here. They are highly spiritually aware, and their consciousness is very, very broad. They fly using thought as their mechanism. They appear only when they wish to appear. Their normal level of existence is on what we call the etheric level. That's the levels that certain psychics, I suppose, can see. People with etheric vision. I don't have that, which is probably fine with me. But so we don't normally see them in their etheric bodies, and the same with their ships. And the reason I say that is we were going down to Glen Rose, Texas, to a UFO symposium maybe 10 years ago, and we had a booth there. And, we were supposed to talk to the public about what we knew about Benjamin Creme's book and about what I'm talking about today. So I was standing on a balcony looking at the sky, did this for several days in a row with a camera. And I looked up at the sky and I said, well, if I could see someone, if you all could fly by, I could then say I've seen a UFO, and it would give a little more authenticity to my presentations. And that went on for a couple of days. I was getting really desperate as the time came. On the last day that I tried, I looked up, and there was what we consider your basic scout ship, the disc with the little bubble on the top, came right above me. I can't tell how high it was, but it was only half materialized. So then I looked down to find the button on my camera, and when I looked back up, it was disappeared. So, but the experience has stayed with me, and so the point is that they have been here, they are here, they are enormously beneficial and helpful. There's never been an abduction of a human being into the spaceships. That is totally what they call fake news. It doesn't happen.
A few things about that that we've talked about with Benjamin Creme a few times and so forth about the etheric. And I did want to kind of point this out real quick too. People always want proof of what we talk about. If you look at Wilhelm Reich, who was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud, discovered what he called the orgon, which is and I'm not telling you anything, I'm just kind of getting other people up to speed. Yeah. But anyway, an energy field around all things. He saw the etheric as one plane of existence. Now, the masters see it as four different planes. So that's why, it's kind of a hard sell to tell people about, people, higher civilizations on Mars and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn. But actually, according to the masters, every single planet in our solar system is inhabited. Most of the planets are above our point in evolution on Earth, so they're very advanced civilizations. like Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, that kind of thing. And then other planets like Pluto, which I know scientists are starting to call it not a planet, but there's life on whatever that is. I don't know. I still think Pluto's a planet, but that's just me. I'm old school. But anyway,
me too.
The life on that planet is not very advanced at all at this moment in time, and they can't get off their planet just like we can't get off our planet in the way that they can. But so it was a tremendous scientific discovery that Wilhelm Reich discovered this energy field, and unfortunately it's missed by most scientists. But I like what you said about the ultraviolet ultraviolet light, and how I'm sure it took some explaining for people to do and to eventually prove it to where it became exoteric knowledge, right? But I know I think I remember reading, if memory serves me, George Adamski said that polluting our planet actually goes out past the planet itself, and it can harm them too if they don't do anything. If they didn't do anything about it, what I mean, it would harm other planets in our system as well with the radiation. It's that fine and that light, and it goes right up it through everything, and So yes, it's so many people, and unfortunately those people tend to be the ones that are pulling all the purse strings. If they don't physically see it, taste it, touch it, feel it, it does not exist. But yet there's a whole world and universe that's beyond what we can see and taste and touch and hear and everything,
Yes.
But anyway, I thought it was an incredible story what you were saying about seeing the UFO. I know Ben talked about meeting, and so did George Adamski, about physically meeting them here on the planet. And Ben said many times that there are space brothers walking amongst us that actually know they're from other planets, right?
Yes, definitely.
And they've helped us from time to time, is where their help has always been there, and it's sad. Yes. I think one of the things that I have to say this, Betsy, that I always thought that the other miracles that have been happening would eventually start to it would start to become more common knowledge that they existed before UFOs, because people were so scared of UFOs just 10, 20, 30 years ago. Now it seems like people aren't even that concerned in terms of their own safety when it comes to UFOs, because it's happening so much,
Yes. Well, those people who are, it's not just you and me, thank God. There are other people who, the governments, for example, now are letting it out that they have been working with Space Brothers for decades. It's on the books, so to speak. This is not a surprise to the military, especially, or to any government around the country or around the world. I was thinking just now, Ben was saying that in the UK, when he would ask government officials about UFOs, they would always say, well, UFOs do not exist, but they are harmful to humanity. Which is kind of cute anyway. So no, this is not new knowledge. The real advancement that's coming now is that humanity seems to be a little bit prepared, a little bit more circumspect as to what will happen if you happen to meet a Venusian or a Martian, on the street. Well, first of all, that probably wouldn't happen because they do not want to, or they do not need to approach everyday humanity, certainly. And but this awareness that this is a extraordinarily beneficial movement and progress that we're going through here. I find it incredibly helpful, comforting to know that finally this is becoming known, that it is heading to the mainstream, that all of the nightmares, the fears, and the ugliness of presentations about Space Brothers are pretty much gone, and so we have an awareness that they are so enormously helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, speaking of not space brothers, but people from other planets, Maria Callas was from Venus.
Now, who is that?
Maria Callas was a great opera singer in the 50s and 60s.
Yes.
Married to Onassis, or was she married to Onassis at one point? Well, anyway, she's a great opera singer and beautiful, beautiful voice, very popular. But she was a soul from Venus, so they're here. You know, they have a lot to give. They're here in terms of friendship. I think when we were talking a little bit about the radiation from Earth spews out into space, you know, we live in a neighborhood, in a solar system that is a neighborhood, and what happens on one planet affects the whole neighborhood. And
mm-hmm.
so we have a responsibility to keep our workplace clean and to not destroy it. There's a purpose to this planet as a means of educating and in the process of spiritualizing the planet. And they're here to help us. There's also a writer called Gerard Artson. I don't know if you know of him or not.
Yeah, I interviewed him on this channel back in January, I think.
Oh, great!
Wonderful information. Yeah, about.
Oh, he has so much history, such detailed, and of course he speaks very scientifically about it all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just wonderful to see that this is progressing in, I think, a pretty decent way for humanity and, of course, the whole solar system. One of the things that is really, I think, useful on many levels is the realization that everything is energy, and if you can understand that and kind of rise above the more mechanical view of yourself and the world, you can see that you can begin to apprehend the concepts of going to Mars and there's nothing there but sand and a few hills and I don't know what else. But realizing, as you said earlier, that the place is teeming. There are as many people on Mars as there are here, maybe more.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. The other thing too, you mentioned fake news. I wanted to add something to that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The one thing I found very interesting, last summer there was maybe 4 or 5 articles in 4 or 5 different news websites, mm-hmm. Newsweek and some other ones. So they were reputable news sites. There wasn't alternative news. That the Trump administration and certain levels of Congress, high levels of Congress, were being briefed by members of the Pentagon about UFO activity. And the question that I always had about that is, I know enough about bureaucracies and in business, let alone bureaucracies and high level of government, that there is not one person that would put their neck out and risk their career or looking foolish or worse, right, to bring this information to Congress and to the president, whoever, doesn't matter who the president is, right?
Yeah. Right.
If they didn't think there was some truth to it, they would have never done that,
Yes.
And it was just a little itty-bitty article, but if you really look at it from a different angle, like, who would do that? Of course they wouldn't do that. They know that it's true. Yeah. And then Obama came out, I think it was just a few months ago. It was this year. He was being interviewed by somebody. I think it was a comedian on the Daily Show or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said he never went on to say that there were people flying the craft, but he did confirm that they have video footage of what he said was unidentified aerial phenomena. Mm-hmm. The way they described it, But we're a long way from when it was just swamp gas. That's what. Yes. that was the official line. Oh, it's just swamp gas. Now I know what's that?
I was going to say, and everybody said, oh, right, That must be it.
Exactly. You know, I feel like I'm a good company by saying this, because Ben had the same experience with someone when he asked about somebody had asked him if he could have one of the Space Brothers show up for her, and he did, and he said that it looked like a huge ball of radiant light, like the sun, and he said the woman just melted and looked like let me go back. Didn't melt in the real sense, but melted in terms of her heart, right? And she was so excited to see this UFO, and she just could not. She was just. He said she was like a kid, right?
Yeah.
And then they were at the hotel or something, and she went back into the hotel and just blurted out in the thing, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just saw a UFO!" And this guy was reading the paper. Remember the story?
I do.
And this guy was reading a paper in the lobby and looked up and went, "There's no such thing as UFOs." And she said, the woman just was so deflated and looked at him and goes, "Maybe it wasn't a UFO."
Yes, and she denied it. I mean, she just said, well, it couldn't have been. It was, I don't know what she said. It was an airplane or something. Well, this is the thing. That's a paradigm that is changing, fortunately, but it was so powerful for so very long, and now it's time for it, among other paradigms, to shift to reality, which is, I think, an extraordinarily hopeful thing. Mm-hmm. One of the events, phenomena, if you want to call it that, is the crop circle phenomena that has helped to bring this out, because there are people, especially in England, who, thank goodness they've invented drones, so they don't have to go to the expense of hiring helicopters. Mm-hmm. But as people who follow this crop circle phenomena know, that in England there are just tons every season. There are so many crop circles, that is various designs that are beautiful and for many people very meaningful, that can be seen if you have a drone picture or in a helicopter above the fields of southern England in particular. And there's a season for it. You know, I think it starts maybe in April and runs through August. And people go out there and walk into, hopefully with the okay of the owner of the property, but they say the energy inside these crop circles is phenomenal. In fact, I think Ben has said it would be probably wise not to spend the night over there, just too much energy. But these have been seen all over the world. They're all over the internet. I think it's called Crop Circle Connector.
Yes.
That has them every week now. They have new ones. And
by the way, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you look in the description of this video, there's actually a link to Crop Circle Connector.
Okay.
And so there's, so anybody that wants to know what she's talking about, if you go to that link, you can actually see some of the crop circles and patterns she's talking about. Sorry to interrupt you, Betsy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So when they started appearing, and Ben was telling people, people were asking, well, what are these things? And he would explain that they are made by the Space Brothers, and he said they're made through thought. The Space Brothers come in their ships, and they approach a field, and all of a sudden this crop circle just kind of manifests in the grain. And the manifestation is a reflection of what the thought of the Space Brother wants it to be. And so it created quite a stir, of course, around the world. And I think it was ABC or NBC took a team morning show and went over to London and did a show on these crop circles that were turning up, and discussing what could they be and what have you. Well, before the show, apparently two guys from a pub went out and built a crop circle in a field just themselves. It was obviously very poorly done, and you could see their footprints and all in there. But but the media picked that up, and what is the word? They poo-pooed the real crop circles, and the story has always been, until recently, that this is really just people going out and making crop circles in the sand or in the crops in London. And so this is, as we were talking before, there are people who do not want this information out. And so it was so easy to say, oh, these are just made by two guys from a pub. And the morning show people, just that's what they picked up on, and that was the final framing of the whole subject for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, the crop circle connector people have been very, very assiduously documenting every season now for, 10 years, 15, 20 years. And so it's really hard to say that this is a fake news sort of thing. However, there have been, particularly on Facebook, every once in a while you'll see someone will post a picture of a particular crop circle called the Winchester Circle in England, and there is a crop circle. It looks kind of like those discs they use to make music. They have holes in them. And next to it is a picture, a crop circle that is a human alien or an alien head, the typical no jaw, big eyes, and that sort of thing. So people would ask Ben, is that real? It just seemed most of the crop circles had been symbolic in form, but here was an alien head. Was that our space brothers trying to say, this is us, we did this? And as Ben said, no, that was an attempt that was made by people, and it was an attempt to distort the validity of the real crop circle, which was right next to it. It is fake. So that goes to show you how the efforts to make this all unreal and even scary have paid off for a long time. But it's wonderful to see that people are becoming much more aware in their perspective on these things and allowing the information to be passed along in its real true form as a very big help for humanity.
Now, what do you think the new information coming out about the Space Brothers, what do you think the relationship is between that and the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom at this time, and the information about them?
Yeah, they are working with Maitreya. They are creating a platform in consciousness, in awareness, if you will, for Maitreya's work in the future. As you know, there is tremendous change occurring now, but it's probably nothing compared to the kinds of technological changes even that we will see in the future as soon as we give up war, for example. So they are creating a platform. There are in the sky, in each quadrant of the planet, there is a giant 10 football fields long and high of spaceships that have been sailing up there since 2009, when it was said that they are appearing to herald Maitreya's first television appearances. And if you remember, it was about 2010, I think, when he first did his public appearance, not as himself, obviously, but as a really extraordinary person who knew a lot and who was very idealistic, probably, and probably interviewed as part of a group rather than as just this one extraordinary man. So those spaceships have been seen. They've been posted on Facebook. People that I know have seen them above their horizons where they live, their pictures all over the place. And those are the signs, the heralds of Maitreya's physical presence here among us. And also brings up the whole idea of the Space Brothers and their work. The masters never do anything just for one reason. There's always a synthesis of various levels of reasoning that they go for. So that's what they are, and that is the platform that they are creating. Of course, they.
Do you think that has any? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you think that has anything to do with the information and the pictures that have been coming out of these spirals that have been happening in, you said, Samoa?
Yes, that's another appearance of one of these spaceships. Yes, just like the Norway spiral, they called it. It's the same spiral. It's the same image that, as Ben said, is a sign that Maitreya is in the world. And it's a herald of his appearance. So, yes, this is, again, something that people can talk about. Maitreya is very interested in people wondering what is going on, open their minds to maybe ask the question, what is this? And we've seen it before, and maybe follow the breadcrumbs and have an idea about, could it be what they're talking about, this Maitreya? Could it be that it's really true? So this is part of the same project, if you will. And now it's like ringing a bell when someone sees this incredible spiral in the sky. They post it on Facebook, and people talk about it and wonder what it is. And that's exactly what Maitreya is looking for. He wants people to wonder, to ask questions, to maybe expand their awareness a little bit, to wonder what is this, and what does it have to do with anything.
Now, do you know about what time or when the spiral started to appear over Samoa? Do you remember or no? Was it recently?
I don't, but it would be on Facebook somewhere. Let's see.
Was it the last few weeks or so, or months?
Today.
It was today. Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, it was today. So
I was thinking about the what is it? You talked about the paradigm, right, of humanity right now, right? And thinking about what we know, and the people who are have read this information over the past few years and followed what Benjamin Creme said and so forth, and looked at it, studied it, that kind of stuff. I've kind of come up with a hypothesis or a theory about the revelations that will happen to humanity once Maitreya comes out. Mm-hmm. One, it'll be a revelation for the vast majority of humanity that there is a kingdom of above humanity.
Yes.
That humanity is not at the top, right?
Yes.
I think that all this information coming out about the Space Brothers, and then, as Benjamin Creme said many times, that once Maitreya is out known for who he is, he will actually confirm to the public that we have been visited by UFOs. They mean us no harm. They've been here helping us. So he'll confirm that. So that will be another revelation that there is life on other planets, right?
Yeah.
And then looking at the one that a lot of people don't talk about, and I've always been surprised that it's not talked about more, but Benjamin Creme's master made a quite a startling prediction that in the very near future, actually, he didn't say it was going to be too far off, there would be scientists in France that would discover in a laboratory and prove the existence of the human soul.
Oh,
to me, that is just outstanding. Like, what kind of revelation would that be? You know what I'm saying? For people.
Really?
Yeah. And he kind of jokingly said, he goes, well, it could be an English scientist just living in France. I mean, he always says kind of tongue-in-cheek about stuff like that.
Yes.
But France being the ray makeup of that country is the fifth ray of concrete science, is the soul quality of that country, right? It would, esoterically, it would make sense that they would be the ones that would kind of be after that, and look.
They're good
but
at it. Yeah.
He said it would be able to be duplicated in other laboratories, and stuff. So the thought about that and the revelation that it would bring to people, those three things, and then perhaps the revelation for maybe not everybody, but for some, that the truth is that we are one, and would probably be the other one. So I just, it is so, people get so hung up on the religious aspect of this information, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's so much more broader than that, and more practical than that. And and we talked about in the last video about the principle of sharing, remember? And it really is a manifestation of oneness. It seems like everything that relates to this story in a very real way, or the information about Maitreya and the Master's Wisdom, I guess is a better way of saying it, has to do with oneness.
That's
oneness
right.
On earth, oneness. How do we manifest that? Well, we can't do that without sharing, right?
That's right.
And then looking up at the stars, and we've always wondered, is there life, other planets, or are we just alone? And now there's more and more evidence coming out about that. So I think the revelation is, the ultimate revelation is that for people it's going to be that we're not separate. We're one.
Yes,
so.
and when etheric vision is more popular, let's say, or more people have it, you will be able to see that connection on the etheric plane. As you were talking about the French scientists and discovering the soul and having that replicated on in other laboratories. It would be let's say they discover something energetically, and that is the soul. Well, replicating that experiment in other laboratories, it's going to appear exactly the same in other laboratories, and that would show the oneness on a very practical level. Everybody is part of the one great oversoul of humanity, and so in a very material way, esoterically material way, that is the paradigm of the oneness of humanity. We are all on the soul plane. We are one. That doesn't mean we have to be uniformly all alike, but essentially on the soul, on the spiritual levels, subjectively, we are one, and the only way for us to survive is to live that fact every day, and it'll be easy.
Yep. So, but anyway, it has been wonderful talking with you, Betsy, and I always like to invite you to come back. I try to keep these videos around 30 minutes, but we just have so much to talk about, you and I, that it just goes way past that. But I would love to have you come back and talk about something else about this story in the very, very, very near future.
Okay, I'm going to go hang out on my deck and see if I can get it.
But I guess another way would say we'll have to have you on here forthwith, as Ben would say, or soon, very soon.
Thank you. Appreciate
but thank you
that.
so much for your time, Betsy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Remember to take action.
Okay. Bye.
To help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.